Recently, a dispute in the Blackall family over their mother's will and the fate of the family home, Marino Park in Dublin, exploded in Irish newspapers. Just before she died, Helena Blackall, aged 99, made a will, dividing her estate equally among her children. Her daughters Rose and Eileen have lived in Marino Park since 1917. Rose is now 82.
I was born in Mrs. Ford's nursing home, and I was brought home 3 weeks later to Marino Park. My memories of Marino Park, a very happy home where you will come and go and always know that you were welcome.
Rose and Eileen's brother Gerard had not lived in Marino Park for over 50 years, but in 1991 he got into financial difficulties and took steps to claim his share of the estate, 14 years after his mother's death.
My mother was perfectly aware of the fact that my brother had no love for Marino Park. We never expected him to take an action against us. And furthermore, because of the length of time which we had lived at Marino Park, we did not think anyone could upset us. At the beginning, we thought it was quite funny, but I'm afraid we learned that it wasn't.
The only way to pay their brother Gerard his share was to sell Marino Park. But Rose and Eileen fought this, firstly by challenging their mother's will, and then by battling every subsequent legal decision. While Eileen is too ill to get out, Rose still represents herself in court.
Whatever anyone may say, I do want what is mine, and I refuse to see why someone else should have what is mine. It's very annoying.
The image of this frail elderly lady displaying such spirit in her legal battles has attracted much public attention and support. The same cannot be said for Gerard's second wife, Iris, who was to become an unpopular participant in the dispute.
Well, I didn't meet Iris until 1984, when my brother married her. But if my brother wanted to marry her, I had nothing against it.
And for Gerard's son, William, Iris was not the ideal stepmother.
I did not approve of the marriage at all. I mean, I would have liked my father to have married, but a woman of his age and social background. She didn't really fit into our life here in Dublin.
I met him at a cricket match, and we just got on from there, and he wanted a companionship with me.
And there was quite an age difference, wasn't there, between...
Yes, between my husband and myself, yes. You know, it was a companionship, but then it's went into something else.
In the early years with Gerard, Iris and her young son from her first marriage got on quite well with her sisters-in-law.
I used to come up here for 14 years. It's only when Gerard started the court case, things went nasty.
To complicate family matters further, Gerard also had a stormy relationship with his own son, William.
In about June of 1994, he sent word to me through the hospital that he was dying, at least he was very ill with cancer. And I immediately contacted my stepmother, Iris Blackall. She wasn't very keen on me going to see him, but I went on nonetheless, and then, as I say, I saw him every day. After that, we had a very deep, like we would row tremendously and shout at each other. But underlying it all, there was a sort of a deep emotional pull.
Even on his deathbed, Gerard was haunted by the Marino Park dispute.
The nurses in the hospice said to me, he's waiting on something happening. And I had to say, I had to get some people up and say that the whole thing was over, the court case. Just to let him rest in peace at that time. And then he died.
He said, don't worry, he said, you know, everything has been left between yourself and Iris. And that's the only time, and then we changed the subject. But I never asked him once, was I in the will? So it came as an awful shock to discover that he had cut me out of his will. I went into a field and I called him a bastard at the top of my voice. It was the greatest shock. I think I could safely say it was the greatest shock in my life. I couldn't understand. I mean, if I had children and we didn't get on, I still couldn't envisage doing something like that. It sort of like negates a whole relationship going back to the time you were born. I'm contesting my father's will under the Succession Act on the grounds that he had a moral obligation to provide for me.
All Gerard had to leave was his share of Marino Park.
Iris is, I mean, I'm 62. I don't know what age she is. She was 35 when she married my father, so she's in her late 40s, I suppose. But I say she's entitled in law to a third, and then the remaining 2/3 is at the discretion of the court.
I'm not going to give him anything. There's no way he's getting anything from his father's estate.
Before Iris and William can resolve their differences, the ongoing case between Iris and her sisters-in-law has to be settled first. In 1995, the courts decided that Marino Park must be sold, but the sisters refused to accept that ruling.
That's why we're in court so long. They appeal this and they appeal that. They appeal everything.
Despite the sisters' resistance, the courts accepted an offer of £400,000 from a developer. In 1998, in an effort to conclude the sale, the courts issued an ejection order.
Today, the sheriff's bailiffs arrived to enforce a court order for possession so that sale can proceed.
They told me that they had come to take possession of the house. I asked them, my sister had an appointment in the forecourts, and I asked them to wait until her return. They said they couldn't do that the matter had gone on too long.
I was told to just come here. Then the sheriff handed me the keys for the property. And then he told me to change the locks on the doors because they weren't allowed to come back in at that time. And I was coming in to look after the property.
Iris and her son were living in rented property, so the courts installed them in Marino Park as caretakers.
Well, I felt terrible about it. I wasn't happy. I thought it was really awful, the way they did things. And my son had to go down and lock the gate. It was on television.
The public support for the evicted elderly sisters was overwhelming. And the press cast media-shy Iris in the role of villainess, raking up her past to endorse their view. Now the evicted sisters are disputing the contract of sale for £400,000, accepted by the court in 1995. They claim that the contract is invalid because the full deposit was never paid. Blackrock is one of the most sought-after areas of Dublin. Properties in the area are now fetching premium prices, and Marino Park is a prime location for new development. Since their eviction, Rose and Eileen have received an offer from a new developer of almost £2 million, with the added bonus of the right to live there for the rest of their lives.
This has been going on for 9 years, but now they're going on about this 2 million or whatever it is. My husband made a deal with someone, and if I go back, then I'd be in contempt of court, and I can't do that.
Before this new offer can be considered, the court order for the £400,000 sale must be legally overturned. Whatever the outcome, Marino Park is deteriorating rapidly. Despite the encroaching wilderness and general decay, Rose and her sister Eileen are determined to move back to their beloved home.
There is a tiny section of the roof which will have to be done immediately. And that happened because a plane going across one morning, apparently something fell from it. I heard the crash, but I didn't do anything about it. And then I let things slide. But to do Marina up, perhaps if you wanted to reconstruct everything, it might cost you a fortune. If you wanted a comfortable living house, wouldn't cost all that much. Structurally, there is nothing wrong with Marino Park. It's absolutely sound.
The house has gone derelict, and that is it. And they did nothing about it. And rain pours in through the room, pours down through the stairs, through the other rooms. That's why my son and myself are living on top of the house, because we can't live downstairs. At the end of the day, it's not a very nice place to live. Everywhere is damp. To light a coal fire, right, is 13 hours in this fireplace for hot water. We have to go to friends for a bath. And I don't know how the two old ladies lived in here.
Oh, my aunts feel they can move mountains. I personally, if I was their age, I couldn't see myself living there. But they've got a determination if it was possible, they would move heaven and earth to go back.
The court upheld Rose and Eileen's claim that because of the developer's failure to pay the full deposit on the £400,000 contract, that sale was void. Today, it's back to court again, as the developer is appealing the decision. Rose is ready for battle.
I'm not nervous. See, I believe nerves are only for those who can afford them. And at the moment, I can't afford nerves.
Please God, something will be sorted out, because my aunt, Rose now in particular, she was 82 last month, and the strain on her is really quite terrible. I mean, she's never, actually in all the years that I've known, they've never admitted a strain, stiff upper lip type of thing. But Rose lately, she just said to me the other day, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'll maybe have to go in the stretcher.
I just wish the whole thing was Finished and Deo Gracias at the end of that. And that would be my little prayer.
Much to Rose's disappointment, the appeal has been postponed. A cousin, Ethel Shaw, was at court to comfort her.
The appeal was supposed to be today. It's going to be no jury thing, so they understood that it was going to take 2 days, and it wasn't the case that you could just dismiss in an hour. So it's postponed to January.
It's now November, and the legal teams have seized this opportunity to get all parties to try and negotiate a settlement.
It appears as if this developer is going to offer a price that would be more realistic than the 400,000, because everybody knows that is ludicrous. And also he was going to offer right of residence for a limited amount of time, which is also ludicrous because they want to get back till the day they die.
It's gone on so long, you know, I mean, I just want it finished with, you know. It's up to my two sister-in-laws, you know, to compromise.
What progress has been made?
Oh, we've made quite a lot because they were adamant that they didn't want to move for 400,000. And that's a big step.
But just the day after negotiations by the legal teams, hopes of a settlement are beginning to fade. Rose and Eileen are not happy with the developer's new offer, which falls far short of the £2 million expected.
I don't want them to settle. I don't care if it makes us all bankrupt. I just don't want, this is, you know, all this. Why should an enormous amount of money go to a property developer?
The situation seems to be that they want to live in the house until they die. The developer knows that. I don't object to them coming back in. Oh, not at all. I've told the courts this, you know, my solicitor, my barrister, everybody. They can come back in, but where are they going to live in the house when the place is falling apart? So I am waiting on answers at the moment. You know? So I expect my son and myself will be staying there anyway, in a freezing cold house, falling apart. You know?
I'm not over interested in being a millionaire. Although I wouldn't turn it down now if it arrived. But nevertheless, it's not the be-all and end-all of my existence. I think there's an awful lot more to life than that. And I certainly think it'd be much nicer for me to live where I want to live, instead of being forced to live where I don't want to live.
However, Rose's efforts have been to no avail. In June, the Dublin High Court finally ruled that the original contract was valid. Marino Park must be sold for £400,000.